The queen let her handkerchief fall on purpose. The entire hall stopped breathing. If I bent down and returned it, a bridge between two worlds would be born. If I didn't, a war might begin. And all I was trying to do was be polite. The floor of the Veridara Royal Hall was so polished that Cassian Vale could see his own anxious reflection staring back at him, stretched thin across violet crystal tiles that seemed to glow from somewhere deep beneath the surface. He adjusted his collar for the fourth time in as many minutes and immediately regretted it. The fabric responded with a faint hiss as the adaptive threads recalibrated to his body temperature. "Stop fidgeting," he muttered to himself. "You're representing Earth, or at least a moderately decent portion of it." Around him, the court of Veridara shimmered in layered hues of indigo and silver. Alien nobles stood in curved rows beneath an immense vaulted ceiling where constellations drifted in slow spirals, not projections but living star fragments suspended in gravitational nets. Every so often, one of the stars chimed softly, as if clearing its throat. Cassian tried not to stare. He failed. At the far end of the hall rose a throne carved from a single piece of translucent amethyst crystal. It pulsed faintly, synchronized with the heartbeat of the palace's central reactor somewhere miles below. Upon that throne sat the queen. She looked, at first glance, like a human woman sculpted by an overconfident artist, elegant, poised, impossibly composed. But her skin was a deep, luminous purple, catching the ambient light like satin. Her hair fell in a smooth cascade of black, darker than the space between stars, framing a face that would have been entirely human were it not for the long, graceful ears that extended upward and slightly back, tapering to delicate points. They moved subtly, independently, like expressive punctuation marks to her silence. Queen Aeryth of Veridara regarded him with calm, silver-flecked eyes. Cassian bowed. He had practiced the angle precisely. Not too shallow, insulting, not too deep, submissive, not too slow, dramatic, not too fast, panicked. He suspected he had somehow achieved all four. "Rise, envoy Vale," she said. Her voice carried effortlessly across the hall, smooth and resonant like a chord struck on a crystal instrument. It was neither cold nor warm, it was simply certain. Cassian straightened. "Your Majesty." A faint ripple moved through her long ears. He had been informed this could indicate curiosity, annoyance, amusement, or mild indigestion. The cultural brief had been frustratingly vague. "You stand very rigidly," she observed. "I was told that rigidity is a sign of respect." "In Veridaran culture," she replied, "rigidity is a sign that one is about to be attacked by a sealing predator." Cassian blinked and instinctively glanced upward. The queen's lips curved slightly, a small, unmistakable smile. "There are no sealing predators," she added. A soft murmur of amusement drifted through the court. Cassian cleared his throat. "On Earth, we mostly worry about gravity." "A sensible fear," she said. "Gravity has killed far more beings than sealing predators." He couldn't help it. He smiled back. The ceremony proceeded with deliberate slowness. Robotic attendants hovered forward, their bodies formed of articulated silver rings that rotated around a central core of pale light. One projected a translucent treaty glyph between Cassian and the throne. The symbols shifted, translating themselves into human language and back again, ensuring that nothing was lost between worlds. Trade routes, cultural exchange, shared research on quantum agriculture. A surprisingly heated clause regarding the ethical treatment of sentient algae. Cassian answered questions carefully. He did not mention that Earth's algae occasionally glowed ominously in polluted bays. He felt that would not help negotiations. Throughout the exchange, he was aware of the Queen's gaze. Not oppressive, not hostile, evaluating. At a pause in the proceedings, a silence settled over the hall, one that felt deliberate, as if silence itself had been invited to attend. The Queen rose. The movement was fluid, controlled. The throne dimmed slightly as she stepped forward, descending the shallow crystal steps. The air seemed to respond to her presence, currents shifting subtly. carrying the faint scent of something metallic and floral. Cassian felt every vertebra in his spine straighten again. She approached him until only a few paces separated them. Up close, the faint luminescent patterns beneath her purple skin became visible, delicate lines like constellations mapping unknown territories. "You have conducted yourself with composure, Envoy Vale," she said. "I rehearsed being calm for 3 weeks," he admitted. "I'm glad it's convincing." Her ears angled forward. "Honesty," she said softly. "Rare." He opened his mouth to reply, and then it happened. With a motion so subtle he almost missed it, the Queen's hand shifted. A small square of fabric, midnight black threaded with silver filaments, slipped from her fingers. It drifted downward, not falling immediately but slowing as if the air itself resisted gravity. The silver threads shimmered faintly, reacting to the ambient field of the hall. Cassian watched it descend. He had a very clear memory of the cultural briefing. He also had a very clear memory that nothing had been said about handkerchiefs. The cloth reached the floor. It lay there, innocent and deceptively small, against the glowing violet crystal. The hall became impossibly quiet. Cassian became acutely aware that several dozen alien nobles were now staring at him. He glanced at the Queen. Her expression was serene, unreadable, but one of her long ears tilted slightly to the side. This was a test, or a trap, or perhaps, he thought wildly, this was how Veridarans declared war. He imagined future historians explaining that the Veridara conflict began because one human envoy had misinterpreted a napkin. He inhaled. "It's just fabric," he told himself. "Probably." He bent down. He did so slowly, resisting the urge to lunge heroically as if rescuing a falling child. He picked up the handkerchief carefully, noticing that it was warmer than expected, the silver threads humming faintly against his fingertips. For a brief, irrational moment, he wondered if it might explode. It did not. He straightened and extended it toward her. "Your Majesty," he said, aiming for dignified and landing somewhere near cautiously hopeful. Her eyes flicked to the cloth, then back to him. She did not take it immediately. Instead, she asked, her voice quiet but carrying effortlessly through the hall, "Do you know what this means?" Cassian considered several responses. "Yes, it means gravity is functioning normally." "No, but I suspect I'm about to find out." "Is this the part where I'm knighted?" He swallowed. "I'm going to guess," he said carefully, "that it means more than I think it means." A faint shimmer passed through her luminous skin as if something beneath it had brightened. "A wise answer," she said. She reached out and took the handkerchief from his hand. The moment their fingers brushed, a soft pulse of energy rippled outward, not violent, not painful, but unmistakable. The crystal tiles beneath them glowed brighter for a heartbeat, and somewhere above, one of the suspended star fragments chimed in a higher key. Cassian jerked slightly. Was that supposed to happen? A murmur coursed through the court, but it was not alarm. It was something else, approval. The Queen folded the handkerchief with deliberate care. "In Veridaran tradition," she said, "when a sovereign allows an object bound to her personal field to touch the ground, she relinquishes a measure of her guarded space." Cassian tried to look as though he understood what that meant. "And when another returns it," she continued, "without hesitation, without demand, and without exploiting the vulnerability." Her long ears lifted fully now, elegant and unmistakably alert. "It signifies that the one who returns it recognizes that vulnerability and chooses not to claim it." Cassian blinked. "So," he said slowly, "this was not about housekeeping." A faint laugh escaped her, soft, melodic, startlingly human. "No, Envoy Vale, it was not." He exhaled. "That's a relief. I was worried I'd just volunteered to be your royal laundry attendant." A few of the alien nobles emitted a series of clicking sounds that, judging by their relaxed posture, might have been laughter. The Queen's eyes remained fixed on him. "You bent," she said. "I did." "You did not scan the cloth for hidden devices." "I thought about it," he admitted, "and yet you returned it." "I was raised to return things that aren't mine," he said. even if they might be symbolic interstellar power tokens. Her lips curved again. On Veridara, she said softly, to bend before a queen without command is either supreme disrespect or supreme trust. Cassian's heart thudded. I was aiming for trust, he said. Disrespect would have required much more confidence. For the first time since he had entered the hall, the queen's composure shifted, not shattered, not broken, but warmed. The faint luminescent lines beneath her skin pulsed in a gentler rhythm. Then perhaps, she said, we have taken the first step toward something unusual. He raised an eyebrow. Unusual good or unusual catastrophic? Her ears angled forward, playful. That, she replied, depends entirely on what you do next. Cassian decided very quickly that what you do next was the most dangerous sentence in the known galaxy. The court remained silent, but it was no longer the heavy silence of evaluation. It was anticipatory, almost curious. The queen stood before him, the folded handkerchief resting once more in her hand, its silver threads dim now, as if satisfied. He cleared his throat. I assume, he began carefully, that the correct next step is not to ask for a user manual. A faint ripple passed through her long ears. We rarely provide manuals, she said. They encourage dependency. On Earth, we provide manuals for everything, he replied. Most of us ignore them, but they exist. It makes us feel safer. Does it? She asked. Not particularly. A small wave of clicking sounds passed through the nobles again. The queen turned slightly, addressing the court without breaking eye contact with him. The envoy has completed the gesture of returned vulnerability. The words carried a weight that made Cassian's stomach drop half an inch. He leaned slightly toward her. That sounds official. It is older than this palace, she said quietly, older than our current star. Comforting. She began to walk, not back toward the throne, but away from it toward a side corridor framed by curved arches of dark crystal. The air shifted as she moved, subtle gravitational eddies responding to her presence. After a few steps, she glanced back. Walk with me, Envoy Vale. He resisted the urge to look behind him to confirm she meant him. He followed. The doors of the royal hall sealed behind them with a seamless fusion of crystal edges. The corridor beyond was quieter, narrower, lit by soft bands of bioluminescent panels that responded to their footsteps. With each step Cassian took, faint patterns bloomed underfoot and faded again like luminous footprints in slow motion. Should I be nervous? He asked. Yes, she said calmly, but not excessively. Excellent. That's my preferred level of panic. Her lips curved. They walked in silence for several moments. Up close, away from the spectacle of court, she seemed less distant. The faint glow beneath her purple skin pulsed in complex rhythms, like a second language layered beneath speech. Her long ears shifted minutely, adjusting to sounds he couldn't perceive. You reacted without calculation, she said at last. I calculated, he corrected. Very quickly, mostly worst-case scenarios. And yet you bent. He shrugged. On my world, when someone drops something, you pick it up. It's one of the few social rules we've almost universally agreed on. You have so few, she asked. Oh, we have many. We just don't follow them consistently. That aligns with our research. He glanced sideways at her. I'm afraid to ask what that research includes. A great deal of your planetary network transmissions, she said. He winced. Please tell me you skipped the comment sections. We attempted to decode them. We concluded they are ritualized aggression displays. That is disturbingly accurate. They reached an open chamber. The ceiling arched high above, transparent, revealing open space. Not projected open. A containment field shimmered faintly at the perimeter, holding atmosphere in place while stars burned in silent brilliance beyond. Cassian stopped. You have a balcony into space. It pleases us, she said. It reminds us of scale. He stepped cautiously closer to the edge. The planet curved below, a vast ocean of violet clouds and glimmering landmasses traced with silver rivers of energy. I suddenly feel very small, he admitted. You are, she said gently. So am I. That surprised him. She stepped beside him, close enough that he could feel a subtle warmth radiating from her skin. The handkerchief rested loosely in her fingers again. In our culture, she said, the gesture is not performed lightly. A sovereign does not allow her field-bound object to fall unless she is prepared to accept consequence. Consequence, he echoed, that word again. She turned to face him fully. When you returned it, you entered my personal resonance. I did. He looked down at himself. Is it visible? Do I glow now? She studied him with faint amusement. Not visibly, yet. That yet is doing a lot of work. Her ears angled slightly outward. The silver threads are woven with quantum-sensitive fibers attuned to my biofield. When you touched them, they recorded your neural signature. He stared at her. You scan my brain. A superficial mapping, she corrected. No private memory extraction. That's good. There are several embarrassing incidents from adolescence I would prefer remain interstellar mysteries. We are not interested in your adolescence. Another relief. She folded the cloth again, more tightly this time. The mapping allowed the field to assess intent, she continued. It found no predatory surge, no opportunistic spike. Predatory surge, he repeated. Do humans have those? Some do. He nodded slowly. Fair. She stepped closer still. You acted with instinctive reciprocity. That is rare in diplomatic contexts. I've found that overthinking makes things worse, he said. I once tried to overthink a handshake and ended up saluting a bakery owner. Her expression shifted. Why would one salute a bakery owner? I don't know, I panicked. There were pastries involved. Her laughter this time was unmistakable. It rang clear and bright in the chamber, echoing faintly against the containment field. One of her long ears flicked backward as if embarrassed by her own reaction. You are unlike the projections we reviewed, she said. That's concerning. The projections suggested guarded ambition. And instead you got this. Yes, she said softly. Instead I got this. A pause settled between them, but it was not uncomfortable. Below, a streak of light arced across the planet's atmosphere, an orbital transport entering controlled descent, its trail shimmering. You asked what it means, she said. I did, bravely or foolishly. In ancient Veridaran courts, when a queen performed the gesture and the one who returned the object proved sincere, that individual was granted provisional access to her unshielded audience. He blinked. That sounds intimate. It is. In a political way, in every way. He inhaled slowly. Define every. She watched him carefully. It means you may speak to me without ceremonial filtration, without translation algorithms smoothing your words, without the court's interpretive interference. He processed that, so I can say exactly what I think. Yes, he winced. That may have unintended consequences. Truth often does. She stepped even closer so that only a breath separated them. The stars beyond seemed to lean inward. Speak then, she said, without filtration. He swallowed. You're testing me, he said quietly, not for obedience, not for cleverness. You're testing whether I see you as a symbol or as a person. Her ears stilled completely. Continue, she said. You dropped the handkerchief to see if I would exploit the vulnerability, he said. If I would hesitate long enough to calculate advantage. If I would treat you like a throne instead of you. Silence. The faint glow beneath her skin brightened, tracing delicate lines along her cheekbones and throat. And what do you see? She asked. He hesitated only a fraction of a second. I see someone who carries an entire planet on her shoulders, he said, and who probably gets very tired of being untouchable. The containment field hummed softly, responding to a subtle fluctuation in her biofield. That, she said, voice lower now, was not in our projections. I'm improvising. A faint smile touched her lips. You have passed the second threshold, she said. There are thresholds, he asked weakly. How many thresholds are there? She considered. It depends how far you wish to walk. He glanced at the open stars, then back at her. I didn't come here to conquer anything, he said. I came to build something, preferably something that doesn't explode. Her ears angled forward again, curious. "Then you should know," she said, lifting the handkerchief slightly, "that by returning this you have entered my resonant circle. That sounds exclusive. It is limited to 3 individuals at any time. And how many are currently in it?" he asked. She held his gaze. 2. His heartbeat quickened. "I assume the 3rd slot is not filled by a bakery owner." "No," she said, almost teasing. He exhaled slowly. "So what happens if I mishandle this privilege?" She tilted her head slightly. "Then the resonance fractures. The consequences would be unpleasant. For me, for both of us." He nodded. "Mutual unpleasantness, that seems fair." A comfortable quiet settled again. Far below, lightning flickered within the violet cloud layers of the planet. "You are amused by danger," she observed. "I'm terrified of it," he corrected. "I just cope with humor. A functional adaptation," she said. He looked at her fully now, no throne, no court, no ceremony between them. "So," he said carefully, "what is the 3rd threshold?" Her long ears lifted slowly, gracefully. "The 3rd threshold," she said, "is choice." "Choice of what?" "Whether this resonance remains diplomatic," she replied, "or becomes something more personal." He stared at her. "I was told this mission would involve trade negotiations," he said faintly. "It does. And possibly cultural exchange." "Yes. I was not briefed on existential relational decisions. Your briefings were incomplete." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "Of course they were." The stars burned steadily beyond the containment field. The palace reactor pulsed beneath their feet. He met her gaze again. "Well," he said gently, "I suppose that depends on what you do next." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The stars beyond the containment field burned with patient indifference, and far below, violet storms rolled across the planet's atmosphere like slow, thoughtful breaths. Cassian became aware that he was standing at the edge of an alien world beside its queen, having accidentally joined something called a resonant circle, and that his next sentence might alter diplomatic history. "No pressure," he muttered. Aerith's long ears angled toward him. "Pressure is a gravitational constant," she said. "It exists whether acknowledged or not." "That's comforting in a deeply unhelpful way." She studied him quietly, the faint constellations beneath her purple skin pulsing in contemplative rhythms. "You asked what happens next," she said. "Now you must answer." He ran a hand through his hair, exhaled, and forced himself not to retreat into humor immediately. For once, he let the silence stretch. "When I arrived," he said slowly, "I saw you as a symbol, an objective. A negotiation point with very elegant ears." One of those elegant ears twitched. "I told myself I was here for Earth, for treaties, for stable trade corridors and fewer interstellar misunderstandings about algae rights." "A worthy mission," she said. "It still is." He met her eyes, but somewhere between the handkerchief and the balcony into literal space, I realized I was also here as a person. Her gaze sharpened slightly. "Explain." "I've spent most of my career anticipating traps," he said, measuring every word, assuming that power always hides a blade. "That assumption has preserved your life," she said. "Yes." He nodded. "But it also kept me distant. Efficient, untouchable." He glanced down at the folded handkerchief in her hand. "You dropped something precious," he continued. "Not as a trick, as a risk. And I bent without calculating advantage. That's new for me." Her voice softened. "You chose instinct over strategy." "I chose decency over leverage," he corrected. "And I didn't regret it." A faint warmth spread through her biofield. He felt it, subtle but real. "The 3rd threshold," she said, "requires reciprocity." He arched an eyebrow. "So I have to drop something now, if you wish to proceed." He looked around theatrically. "I don't carry embroidered quantum textiles." She waited. He understood. With deliberate motion, he reached up and removed the diplomatic insignia pinned to his collar, a small metallic emblem bearing Earth's unified crest. It contained a secure transmitter, a biometric tracker, and a silent alert system designed to summon orbiting defense craft if negotiations collapsed catastrophically. He held it in his palm. "You realize," he said lightly, "that protocol absolutely forbids what I'm about to do. I assumed as much." He turned the insignia over once, then let it fall. It struck the crystal floor with a soft metallic sound. The palace did not erupt. No alarms blared. No ceiling predators descended. He did not bend immediately. Instead, he stepped back half a pace. Her eyes widened a fraction. "You relinquish your safeguard. I relinquish my assumption that I need it with you," he said. Silence. Then slowly she stepped forward. She bent. The Queen of Veridara lowered herself, long ears brushing the faint glow of the floor, and picked up the insignia. Cassian felt something shift inside him, something rigid uncoiling. She rose, holding the small human emblem between two slender purple fingers. "You understand," she said, voice steady but lower, "that this places you at my mercy." He smiled faintly. "I thought we established that mercy goes both ways." Her luminous markings brightened, responding to something deeper than ceremony. She extended her hand and returned the insignia to him. "Then let this be recorded," she said softly, "that the resonant circle now holds 3. A subtle tremor passed through the chamber, not destructive but expansive. The containment field shimmered, and high above, the suspended star fragments shifted position, aligning into a new configuration. Cassian stared upward. "Did we just rearrange your sky?" "A minor recalibration," she replied. "Symbolic. Of course it is." A pulse of energy traveled through the palace's foundation, resonating outward across the city below. In distant towers, bioorganic spires adjusted their harmonic frequency. The entire capital seemed to exhale. "You have altered more than a diplomatic status," she said. He blinked. "I have. By entering the circle, you initiated a neural concordance protocol." "That sounds intense." "It is." Before he could protest, a gentle wave of sensation brushed against his mind, not invasive, not forceful, an awareness. A presence at the edge of thought. He stiffened. "Is this the part where you read my embarrassing adolescence?" A faint laugh echoed in his mind, not through his ears but directly behind his thoughts. "I have no interest in your bakery incidents," she projected gently. He nearly stumbled. "You're in my head." "At the perimeter," she said aloud. "Only what you allow." He hesitated, then relaxed fractionally. The presence remained delicate, respectful. "What does this accomplish?" he asked. "It aligns intent," she said, "prevents deception within the circle, ensures that vulnerability cannot be weaponized." "That would make political maneuvering difficult." "Yes." He considered that. "Good." Below them, another streak of orbital light crossed the planet's atmosphere. "Earth's envoy craft remains in high orbit," she said. "Its defense systems are primed." "You monitored that." "I monitor everything above my world." "Fair." He fastened the insignia back onto his collar. "I won't signal them," he said quietly, "not unless you give me reason." "And I will not give you reason," she replied. They stood together at the edge of open space. After a moment, he grinned faintly. "You realize the reports back home are going to be impossible to write." "How so?" "Dear Council, negotiations successful. Also accidentally joined Alien Queen's resonance bond. Please advise." Her laughter rippled again, lighter now. "You have changed," she observed. He nodded slowly. "I think I have." "In what way?" "I'm less interested in winning," he said, "more interested in understanding." She studied him, then inclined her head slightly. "That is growth." "Don't make it sound so dignified," he said. "I tripped into it." "Growth often follows imbalance." He glanced sideways at her. "Is that a royal proverb?" "Yes." "Do you have one about diplomats who overcommit?" "Several." He laughed softly. The tension that had defined their first encounter, the careful measurements, the hidden calculations, had dissolved into something steadier. Not naive, not reckless, balanced. "Will your court accept this?" he asked after a while. "They already have," she said. "The star fragments do not realign without consensus." "And Earth?" That, she said, is your challenge. He exhaled slowly. They'll argue, debate, panic a little. Will you stand by your choice? He looked at her, truly looked, not at the throne she commanded or the planet beneath her, but at the being who had risked vulnerability with a simple drop of fabric. Yes, he said. A subtle warmth flowed through the neural concordance, not overwhelming but steady approval. Then the bridge is stable, she said. He tilted his head. Bridge. Between worlds, she replied. Built not from treaties alone but from mutual risk. He considered that. You could have just sent a memo. We prefer gestures. He smiled. For a while they stood in companionable quiet, watching the curve of Veridara below. The storms calmed, the lightning fading into distant glimmers. Tell me something honestly, he said at last. I am within your perimeter, she reminded him. Honesty is unavoidable. Were you certain I would bend? She was silent for several heartbeats. No, she admitted. I calculated probability, 43% likelihood of hesitation long enough to disqualify you. And if I had hesitated, the handkerchief would have returned to my field, the circle would have remained closed. He nodded slowly. So it really was that simple. Yes. He looked down at his hands. All this, he murmured, because I picked something up. Small actions, she said softly, reveal foundational structures. He laughed under his breath. On Earth we have a saying, it's the little things that count. A primitive phrasing, she said. Accurate, though. Her ears angled toward him again, relaxed. You no longer stand rigidly, she observed. He realized she was right. His shoulders were loose, his breathing steady. No ceiling predators, he said. None. He extended his hand, not in ceremony, not in negotiation, but simply as himself. She regarded it for a moment, then placed her purple hand in his. The contact was warm, steady, equal. No energy surge. No chime of stars, just connection. We proceed, she said quietly. Together, he asked. Yes. Far below, the capital city of Veridara shimmered, its towers adjusting to a new harmonic alignment. In orbit, Earth's envoy craft recalibrated its stance, receiving a subtle signal of diplomatic stability. Cassian felt the weight of responsibility, and for once it did not feel like a burden. It felt shared. Next time, he said lightly, if you want to test me, perhaps drop something less historically significant. She tilted her head, eyes bright. I will consider misplacing a cup. I make no promises about my reaction to alien tableware. That, she said with quiet amusement, is precisely why this will be interesting. They remained at the edge of space as the stars shifted subtly into their new pattern, the resonant circle complete, the thresholds crossed not by force or conquest, but by the simple courage to bend, and to return what was not theirs to claim.